Hey, Paul. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Anthony. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. You are a man after my heart, if that doesn't sound too weird, because I love automation and delegating in my business. So to find out, to get introduced to you, and as somebody who really focuses on that area, I thought would be just a great conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to talk about wherever you want to take the conversation.
Cool. So why don't we start with just about you and your personal story? I think I read that that you sort of had a moment where you decided to sort of that your business was running you. I don't want to tell your story for you, but what can you share a little bit about that for us?
Yeah, so at one point it was running me. So I live in Raleigh, North Carolina, so I'm on the East Coast as well. Been here almost 10 years. Got a wife, Angela. We've been married 7. We got a 3-year-old daughter who keeps us busy. But I started out like everyone told me to start out. So I went to school. I got good grades. I went to college. I graduated. And then I decided to climb the corporate ladder. So it was either between New York and Chicago. I grew up in Michigan. And it was either between New York or Chicago, wherever I ended up first. Ended up in Chicago. Sat in a cubicle.
You made a big pizza mistake there, by the way.
Yes, that is for sure. The only time I would eat deep dish pizza is when someone would come visit and say, I got to get that Chicago pizza. I was like, okay, fine, we'll go. But you are 100% correct. I made the wrong pizza decision for sure. So I was always looking for the New York style pizza. And even now in North Carolina, that's really all we go for. So anyway, that is 100% true. But my story was that I was going to climb the corporate ladder for 40 years, do something that I was good at, didn't totally love, and then retire and enjoy life. And then I realized after doing that for a couple of years, I think I was blessed to start my finance career just before the Great Recession. Yeah. And then by 2008, I saw all these people that were so committed to a job that they didn't really love. And then they all got laid off. Luckily for me, I was one of the last people hired. So I was making the least amount of money on my floor. So I was safe, but it still was just it was really something that I realized I didn't want to do for the rest of my life. So anyway, I quit, traveled around South America for a little while, and then ended up here in Raleigh, North Carolina, where...
Sorry, yes. Were you married at that time? I'm trying to get a sense of the amount of responsibilities involved.
I did not have a ton of responsibilities. And it really, what I saw everyone else that had a ton of responsibilities lose their job. And that job was providing everything, their mortgages, their car payments, their kids' private school, their big house in the suburbs, all these things. I was like, this is crazy. Like everything is propped up by this one job. It's basically having a business with one client. That client fires you, you're out of business. So I knew I made the decision that if I'm going to take this leap, I'm going to do it now before I turn into these people who, God bless them. I don't want to be like them because I want to have the flexibility and ability to take care of my family, do what I want to do when I want to do it. So wasn't married. I had a girlfriend at the time, which is the reason we moved to Raleigh. And then I ended up getting married. But when I got here, I knew I didn't want to work for somebody else. So I started my own business. It started to take off. We were running after school programs for elementary kids, summer camps, parent-child events, that type of stuff. So I loved it. And I was working eventually, as you alluded to, about 60 to 80 hours a week. And I was still happy. Like, I'd rather do that than sit in a cubicle for 40, 50, 60 hours a week and commute into the city and sit on the train and the subway and all that stuff. So, but I got to the point where I started to have those responsibilities. We got married. We wanted to buy a house. And my income, my wife was working full time, but my income was a part of what we were doing. And I realized if something happened to me, basically what happens if I got hit by a bus? My income would go to zero pretty quickly. The employees I did have would be out of a job. All my customers would be very upset, and my wife would be even more upset. So I realized I was living in the worst case scenario. And if I went and delegated everything, automated everything, it didn't work, it would all come back to me, which is where it was anyway. So I figured I might as well try it. Mm-hmm. And that was the same mentality I had when I quit my job. When I quit my job, I said, what's the worst thing that could happen? This business thing doesn't work, and I go get another job. So anyway, that is kind of the backstory of where I am today, or how I got to where I am today. Started automating, delegating, systematizing everything, cut my hours in half, doubled my business, was able to sell it, and now where we are today, I help other business owners do that, as well as run some other local businesses. So that's really, how I got to where we are now. So wherever you want to take it, Anthony, I'm all ready for that.
Oh yeah. So you're talking about a topic that's really dear to my heart. I'm also a small business owner. So anything that you have to do personally is just like found time and money, right? As a business owner. So the two areas where I've always thought of when I think of automation is delegating to staff or automating with software or AI. So those are the two main buckets that I've sort of dealt with. Has that been your experience, or are those the two main levers that you can pull to start automating and delegating, or is there anything else you can add to that?
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. So when I tell business owners you need to automate everything, they look at me and say, well, a piece of technology can't go do X, Y, and Z. And it might not be able to. But automating just means it happens automatically and you don't have to do it. You pull that lever and it just starts cranking it out, whatever it is. If it's a person going to deliver a service or if it's a piece of technology automating something, that's what automation really means to me. And obviously you need to have a strategy and everything behind it. But yeah, so many business owners are so hung up on, I'm the only one who can do it. Nobody can do it as well as I can. I don't trust technology. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen by me, until they realize all they really own is a very stressful job that is not, if you're going to have a job, you might as well go be an employee from someone else and at least get a 401k and paid time off and paid vacation and disability and all the things that come with, the golden handcuffs of having a job.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Excuse me. So the flip side, I'm going to be devil's advocate for a second. The flip side to that, and I've experienced this personally, is when you delegate and you start sort of relying on an employee, or in my case, a paralegal, as the case may be. What happens when that paralegal gets a better job offer somewhere, or for whatever reason moves on, and you've sort of sunk a lot of training and you've invested quite a bit and have begun to rely quite a bit on that person? Doesn't that put you sort of at the mercy of your employees in some ways?
Yes and no. So I think there's probably a couple answers to get to the conclusion there. One is your vision. You really need to share. First, you need to have a vision of what you want your company to look like. And then secondly, that vision needs to align with your employees' visions. And you really need to start to build this thing together. And if you go to your paralegal and say, hey, what's your vision? Where do you want to be in 5 or 10 years? And they say, well, I want to be X, Y, and Z. Okay, well, it's my job to allow you, to enable you, and empower you to achieve those goals. And if I can't help you achieve those goals, maybe there's somebody else out there. So really building that culture where your paralegal should be comfortable saying, hey, Anthony, this just really isn't cutting it for me. I would love to stay. I love what you're doing. But these are some things that are really important to me. Maybe she wants or he wants to be at home more, or maybe they want to have a little bit more flexibility, or whatever it is that this new company is selling them. Maybe it's something you can offer. So that's the first thing. The second thing is if you have the right systems and processes set up, those people are interchangeable. So if she leaves or he leaves, everything that they do should be documented. It's not, otherwise they're running your business like you said, and it's like, oh man, if they ever leave, I don't know how to do anything that they do. And that's the problem most business owners run into. They hire someone with experience, like, okay, go figure it out. Here's your job. And all is well until that person isn't well. And then you're like, oh man, I don't know how to do their job. So really you need to have those standard operating procedures. Their job needs to be to a T, do this, do this, do this. This is how you do it. And a lot of people might say, well, then aren't you turning them into a robot? And the answer is no, it's actually the opposite. Because now that person doesn't have to think about any of that stuff. They can pour all their energy and efforts into delivering a better experience for the customers, being, more present at work, because they're not stuck trying to figure out something all day. So yes, that is, you are at some level at the mercy of employees. But the last answer to that is, what kind of system do you have in place that's constantly recruiting for you? So many business owners are always focused on marketing, recruiting new customers, but they don't focus on marketing and recruiting new people, to further build their talent and have a pipeline of talent. So that way, if Joe, the paralegal, leaves, it's like, oh, perfect. We got 10 people that want to work here. Let's follow up with them and see where they're at. So kind of making sure everything is on the same page from a system standpoint, an HR standpoint, a culture standpoint, and you being a leader, painting that vision and making sure it connects with your employees' vision. If it doesn't, that's fine. Then I'm your advocate to make sure you can achieve your goals, because that's what we really want to do, is leverage our business and allow our employees to leverage their job to build a life that they love. That's really, that should be the focus.
Very true. So you mentioned turning our staff into robots, which is it's a nice segue into my next set of just concerns. Do you think AI is where it needs to be for solopreneurs to really be able to use it? I mean, the chatbots that I've used or I've tried to employ are just terrible. It would be a terrible customer experience. So it doesn't really feel like we're quite there yet, What are you seeing in helping your clients and helping others set up their businesses?
Yeah. So the key phrase that you made was the customer experience. So
Yeah.
we've seen it for years, decades. Big companies use or have attempted to use AI without focusing on the customer experience. So like I literally just called my bank like 30 minutes before this because I had an issue, and I don't like talking to a robot. And then they say, "Oh, did you say Joe?" It's like, "No, I said Anthony." And then it's like, so that AI, if you want to call that AI, makes the customer experience works, it adds friction to doing business with each other. So I've used basically like your experience, I've used chat bots that small business owners have in place, whether it's on Facebook or on their website. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, I rather just pick up the phone or just go somewhere else. So we as small business owners, it's not as accessible yet as other technology, from a cost efficiency standpoint. Whereas big companies might be able to integrate it, institute it, make it work because they have the bankroll, they have the resources and the infrastructure. So even when it comes to automating technology, I tell everybody only use it if it's going to make the customer experience better. If not, you can still pay people to do this task, and it's still going to be very affordable and improve your business.
Yep. And you don't have to do the full leap from doing it yourself to finding a robot. I mean, there are automation systems like Zapier or if then that, things that will make your life easier without going headlong into, R2D2 or whatever you want to call it.
For sure. And I think that's the key. What I would want everyone to realize is it's so accessible now, you can just slowly implement it, whether it's delegating to somebody and using a VA, or some of our businesses, we use like stay-at-home parents who just want a couple hours a week to help out with stuff. So it's such a flat world now where you can have access to these things and you don't need to dive full in, make a huge investment. You can always try it out and then gradually increase it.
Do you use Flex Jobs to find those stay-at-home parents? Have you used that website?
I have not used Flex Jobs. I actually never heard of that. So I actually run here locally in Raleigh. I run a Facebook group of a couple thousand business owners. So if I have an opportunity, I'll post it like, "Hey, does anyone know looking for somebody for a couple hours a week?" Or my wife is in some mom's group, so she can always post like, "Hey, is someone looking for a little bit of work?" And then actually one of the businesses that I own is a dog walking business. And we use some of our dog walkers to help with some of our work that we have in a landscaping business, doing some, clerical work, administrative work, paperwork, that type of stuff. So people are always looking to pick up hours, and they might not be looking for that full commitment anyway, so it does work for both sides.
Cool. Let's, I'm gonna really sink into your expertise here and ask you to just dive into some practical examples. One is a law practice. I am an attorney, and I have a lot of our listeners are colleagues of mine. And then after that, the realtor business, the real estate broker business, because again, we have a lot of listeners and that's a very common solopreneur type of business, at least here in the New York area. Is it the same true for you in North Carolina? Yeah.
So ironically, in the realtor space, the realtor we use for property stuff, she threw out the stat. There's like 10,000 realtors in Wake County, which is the county that Raleigh's in. And on average, they sell like 3 homes a year, whatever it is. So most of them are never able to make that jump from solopreneur, grinding it out, doing all these appointments, these meetings, working nights, weekends. And then hopefully that person chooses them because they have so many options. So yeah, I'll let you take the conversation where you want to focus on law practice, realtors, both. But yeah, it's the exact same here.
All right, cool. So let's start with the law practice. So I guess my first question is, what areas would you, so let's say you have a new client or somebody who's seeking your help and he's an attorney. Where do you start? What is the first area where should they start shedding or delegating or automating? Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously in the professional space, whether it's say a realtor, an accountant, an attorney, a lot of them, I'm going to go do this myself. I'm going to name the practice over myself. Yeah. And then they basically have created a job for themselves. So the very first place I start, even before we get into actual advice, is exactly what we said before, painting out what is your vision. What does your ideal life look like? Do you want to be a solopreneur? Do you want to have a bigger practice? What does that look like? And then what kind of organization do you need to build in order to build that ideal lifestyle that you want? So my vision is every business owner should be able to leverage their business to do whatever they want in this world. So how are we going to build that business? And what everyone wants, that's different for everybody. So say you want to not be the man anymore, be the woman anymore, doing all the law work, in your law practice. So where I usually start is having them document everything that they do, not how they do it, but literally, I call it the delegation snowball. So write down every single thing that you do, kind of document over a week or two, and then look at it and say, how long does it take? How often do I do it? So really doing an analysis of where are you spending your time? And after that, how bad do you want to delegate this thing? It might, and that can be based on it takes too long, I hate it. Or what I encourage a lot of people do is the thing you want to delegate first is something really easy, just to start building that momentum and getting over the mindset hurdle that nobody else can do this. So whether you're hiring a paralegal or you're bringing on a partner, or maybe it's some of the marketing you're doing or the networking, whatever it is, every business owner has different pain points of what they don't like doing, how bad they want to get rid of it. And then figuring out, if I had more time, what would I spend my time on? So before we even start doing any action, let's really do an analysis of where should I spend my time? What do I need to get off my plate? Is it the administrative work? Is it answering the phones? Is it doing emails? Usually there's a lot of quick wins that we can pick up 10, 20 hours, a week that they could then focus on whatever it is they want to spend more time on. If they like networking, they can go do more networking. If they want to be with their team, they can go be with their team. If they want to focus on the bigger clients and get rid of the smaller clients, whatever it is, there is no cookie cutter example for anybody. But once you have that, then it's kind of, I use the 12-week year. I'm a fan of the 12-week year. There's the 90-day year. It's kind of doing more in less time. Mm-hmm. So setting a goal for that. And then that way you can map out every day, what do you need to do in order to get there? So maybe your goal is to hire an office assistant or hire a paralegal or hire a receptionist. Well, what do I need to do to make that happen, say, in the next 12 weeks? I need to do that. Then you kind of have checkpoints. I need to do this by week 1. I need to do this by week 2. I need to do this by week 3. So I'm working with a client here in Raleigh. He drives back and forth to DC a lot. So he realized if I just had somebody else driving me, that's like 10 hours a week that I could, if I had Wi-Fi or if I had a hotspot, I could get more done. So for him, that was a quick 10 hours. Like, hey, we can find somebody. We'll pay them, you can pay them a couple $100 a week to drive you to DC and back. It's 4 or 5 hours each way. So then you have 10 more hours to work on things. Don't feel like you're behind once you get to DC or whatever. So it's different for every business owner. But I think the key to all of that is painting your vision. What does your ideal life look like? And then what type of organization do you need to build in order to achieve those personal goals? And then evaluating everything you do, how long it takes, how often you do it, and then how bad do you want to get rid of it, and focus on the things you want to get rid of first.
Well, let me play devil's advocate for a second. If I'm a lawyer, and let's take the example of that guy who drove from Raleigh to DC. And I think your suggestion is great. It really clicked for me. But let's say I'm that guy and I say, wait, if I'm paying this driver a couple $100 per week, that means I have to make, I have to book one more client per week. That's just more work for me. I don't want to have to. How do you coach or what do you say to somebody like that objection? Yeah.
Yeah. So then I evaluate how much is your time worth and what do you want to do at that time. So we figured out you could probably pay someone, say, $200 for the day. They leave here at 5 a.m. They get to DC by 9. He works all day and then drives home and they're back by 10 o'clock. So say he pays that guy $200. But that guy drove, quote unquote, for 9 or 10 hours, right? So if you're paying him $200 for 10 hours worth of work, that's $20 an hour. Whatever you're doing should be worth more than $20 an hour, and whatever you want to focus on. So maybe you don't even want to book more clients. Maybe you want to spend those 10 hours to start focusing on automating or delegating. So maybe you're creating standard operating procedures. Maybe you're starting to delegate. Maybe you're training. Whatever it is, it's exchanging lower ticket items for higher ticket items. And eventually you become the CEO of your company instead of the person delivering all the services, if that's your goal. So we work with some people who, hey, I still want to do X, Y, and Z in the company. Now I want to get rid of everything else. So, like the landscaping company that I work with, the owner still wants to be kind of the project manager. So he wants to manage the projects, but he wants to delegate everything else. Sure. Whereas some landscapers they don't want to do anything and they want to run the office. He doesn't really want to run the office. He wants to be out with the guys, not doing the work, but hanging, quote unquote, hanging out with the guys, managing the projects, while someone else is running the office and doing the emails and doing the phone calls, doing the books, whatever it is. So it really depends on what they want. But I always evaluate the time, the trading time for money. If you can pay somebody X amount to get this amount of time back, is that worth it? If you have to pay $1,000 for 10 hours, is your time worth $100 an hour? Maybe not. Maybe you're not there yet. Maybe you need to find some other things.
Very good. Very good. All right. So the reason when I heard of you, one of the first things I thought of was the E Myth. Have you read that book or heard of it even?
I have. Yes, I have read that book.
What are your thoughts? It's Michael Gerber, I believe.
Michael Gerber. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a great book to get people started from a mindset standpoint of this is what you really need to start focusing on. This is where you need to, if you don't want to be working, quote unquote, in your business all day, every day. Now, obviously, a book can't give you tactical, actual advice for your business because every business is different. It's not going to say this is how you do it. So that's where sometimes people read books, they get really fired up, and then they go back to fighting fires the next day, and I'll get to that tomorrow. I'll get to that next day. But yes, if any of the listeners out there haven't read it, I would recommend you read it purely from the mindset of starting to focus and working on your business. And one other book that I would recommend probably ahead of that one is called Built to Sell, where it's the concept of building your business to sell, even if you don't want to sell it, because a business that is able to sell means it can run without you. Even if you don't want to sell it.
Very good. I like it. Built to Sell. That's good. I'm going to look that up. Okay. So you mentioned some people want to get rid of certain types of work and keep others, and vice versa. So for realtors, I know, or I believe, one of the big things that is a time suck and is a real pain for them is the showings. How have you advised folks to sort of delegate or automate that? Is that something that you've come up across a lot?
Yeah. So, if that's something they don't want to do anymore and doing the showings, obviously you have to do a cost benefit analysis, just like we did. Hey, if I hire someone to do all my showings and I pay them accordingly, would I be able to make more money in less time? So if I have to, if I'm doing 20 showings a week and I got to pay somebody to go do that, what could I be doing instead of those 20 showings? And maybe it's spending more time with the family, because a lot of times showings are after 5 o'clock or on the weekends. I don't want to do that anymore. So I can pay somebody else to do it, which then allows me to be more focused during the day, because I know I don't have to worry about those showings at night. So I don't have to plan for them. I don't have to prep them. I don't have to do the legwork. Maybe somebody else is doing that as well. So then you can focus on, maybe just getting the listing. So maybe you're going to more networking events, or maybe you're calling more people. Maybe you're driving around and looking at everything that's for sale by owner and seeing if they need help. Whatever it is, then you're able to spend your time on higher dollar amount items. And then when you go home, it's like, hey, it's 5 o'clock. I can actually hang out with my family, my friends. I can go do this, because I'm not doing showings until 8, 9 o'clock at night. So, that's really, if you don't like doing that anymore, I would think of how can you make it a win-win for the person doing the showings, for you, and then obviously the customer as well. So,
Business Owners Freedom Formula Show. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What do you guys talk about on your show?
Yeah, so I've been running that podcast for a couple of years, and I do a mix of interviews and solo shows. So really it's all about achieving your ultimate freedom. Everyone's definition of freedom is different, but it's kind of the general principles. I want to be able to do what I want, when I want, where I want. So what kind of business do we need to build for that? So we bring on guest experts once a week on focus on whatever they do. And then the solo shows that I do, since I do run some local businesses here and obviously have a lot of experience, I just share a lot of my experiences, tactical advice, straight to the point, probably less than 10. The interviews are 25 to 35 minutes, but the solo shows are probably no more than 10 minutes, just like, hey, this is what's working, this is what's not working, this is something that you can take with you tangibly and go do it. So that's really what we chat about. Twice a week podcast. Check it out. Any podcast player that you have.
How do you do the solo show? So I've tried that. It's just really hard talking to a screen or a mic. I have my paralegal Janice as my co-host for the Q&A shows, or the non-guest shows. I couldn't do it on my own. I mean, did you find that challenging at all?
It was very challenging at first. So originally was like, okay, this is kind of weird. I'm sitting in my house all by myself, talking to nobody. And it was hard to get excited about it. But I found that the more interviews I did, whether being the guest or interviewing people, built up my, just like anything else, kind of building that muscle to now where I just have a couple of bullet points of what I'm going to talk about, and I just kind of go on and talk about it. So it does take time. It does take a certain experience. Not necessarily you have to be really good at it. You just have to continue to do it. So it is a little bit different. But what I found is the easiest, the reason that it makes it easier is that I am practicing what I'm preaching every day. There's a lot of, say, business coaches that have never actually run a business. So it's a little bit harder to talk about, hey, this is what's working in my business type of deal. So that does make it a little bit easier as well.
Cool. And so what are you doing right now to help others? I know you have your own businesses, but you mentioned just now that you coach or you provide training for other business owners. Is that right?
Yeah. So I run a mastermind called the Ultimate Freedom Mastermind, where
Just
what I
for anyone who
realized.
doesn't know, can you explain what a mastermind is?
Yeah. So basically, what a mastermind is a group of people getting together, collectively holding each other accountable with similar goals, and the power of the group is exponentially more powerful than just say doing something one-on-one or just consuming content. And what I realized, what you probably realize, and a lot of listeners realize, is business ownership can be a lonely world. Like nobody really gets it. You can sit in your office all day and not talk to anybody. You go home and your neighbors are like, hey, and you tell them about what's going on. They're like, oh, yeah. Did you watch the game last night? Like, there's not a lot of people that get it. So, that's really what we focus on in this mastermind is accountability. And there's just a lot of business owners, myself included, who didn't know what the next step was going to be. Or, I wanted different results, but I didn't necessarily want to do things differently. I was a little bit scared there. And what I found was the accountability of a group. If you come to me and say, all right, group, by next week, I'm going to have my first process documented. If you didn't tell anybody that and you didn't, say this is my goal, you probably wouldn't do it just because you get busy. It's like, I'll get to it next week. I'll get to it next week. The whole New Year's resolution thing, like I'm going to wait till January to start doing that. And then January comes around and like, yeah, I'm going to get to that later. So that's what it's just a great collection of business owners doing all different things. We have people that own brick and mortar businesses. We have people that own service-based businesses. We have, professionals like CPAs and everybody in between. So it's just a really great collection of business owners who want more. They know there's untapped potential. Maybe they're not quite achieving the income and freedom that they thought they would, but by bringing it to a group and then me kind of leading the way with some structured content and training, it does cause for a really big impact.
So how does that work? Is there a cost involved to joining or like a membership application or interview? Like how does that all work?
Yeah, so there's an application. So if anybody that was listening would be interested, you fill out an application, paulmaskill.com/mastermind. You fill out a quick application, 1 or 2 minutes. Then I would reach out to you. We'd set up a time to chat, make sure it's a good fit. And then it's basically a monthly membership. Right now it's $250 a month, just full disclosure. And then it'll probably be going up. Usually, so we have a group of 10 people. That's the max. Once we hit 10, we would start another group. So our current group that isn't filled yet has 7 people. So once we fill that up, it would probably go up in investment for the next people. Whatever you invest in, it's going to stay that way forever. So yeah, there is a cost involved. And ironically, just side note of investing in something, our members last week said, hey, Paul, you should probably start charging us for when we don't show up just to hold us even more accountable. So now they're telling me that they're willingly going to give me money to make sure they show up. So that's really what the investment there is too, is the more you pay for something, the more likely you are to actually utilize it. Whereas the free stuff just sits on our, on our hard drive forever, collects dust.
So are you doing what, like group Skypes, or do you have one-on-one time?
Yeah, so we do Zoom. So we use Zoom for everything. So we get together once a week for 90 minutes, and then we have hot seats. So a hot seat is basically where you can bring whatever you want to the table for 20 to 25 minutes. So there's 3 hot seats a week. And you might say, hey, I'm going through this problem. I need some help. What have you found that works for you? So that's the other really powerful part, is you're able to lean on everyone's collective experience of, oh yeah, I've been through that. Here's how you do it. So then they get to where they want to go that much quicker while really building these strong relationships. So we get together once a week, and then we bring on guest experts once a month to talk about something focused on business. So we've had salespeople, we've had CFOs come on, we've had operations people come on. So different people bringing different topics, SEO, all different things that go with running a business. So that's exciting. And then we do office hours as well, where I'll jump on Zoom and people can just come and hang out with me for a couple hours. So, it's a really good opportunity to surround yourself with like-minded individuals while also moving your business and life forward.
Yeah, that's cool. That you can't overstate that enough, that being a business owner can often be very, I wouldn't use the word lonely, maybe feel isolated. Just feel like you don't have that many people to talk to. I guess those are all similar. But yeah,
for sure.
Get it. Yeah. Hey, so Paul, I'll make sure to add that link in the show notes. Anything else you want to add before we hop off here?
No, I would say wherever you're at in your business and you're scared of taking the next step, you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And as I've learned many times, the worst case scenario is never as bad as you think it's going to be. At the end of the day, it's business. It's supposed to be fun. And you're smart enough to plan for the worst case scenario. So just go there, take the risk. And that's the only way you're going to move forward. The only way you don't move forward is by not taking action. Take action. If it fails, learn from it and continue to improve, and you'll get to where you want to go.
Cool. Paul, thanks so much. I love talking business, love talking shop, so I was glad to be able to do this. I'm going to let our listeners go and just hang on tight even after we sign off, all right? Thank you, Paul.
All right, thanks, Anthony. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Bye now.